Spring is almost here. Are you ready to refresh your space with some bright, fun, and beautiful decor? Well, stay tuned. Hi, my name is Leslie, and welcome to Happy Tuesday, where we do crafts and DIY and home decor and more on a budget. Here's a quick sneak peek into all 5 of today's projects. I can't wait to start crafting with y'all today. And that brings us to project number 1. I love this adorable little bunny. So first we're going to start with 4 small beads because these are going to be hands and feet to our little baby bunny girl there. And we are going to use some natural colored cotton twine. Now we are going to cut a length long enough for her arms, and the plan is to glue them on top of that little terracotta pot. And then we are also going to make legs with the other beads as feet. So you'll just need to decide how long you want your legs to be, and that will be the size of your cut for those 2 beads. Now I'm just doing a double knot at the end, hold it on there, and that's all there is to this part. Now that terracotta pot that you see back there came from a package on Temu. I think it was like 10 pots for $2 or something like that. But you can use, whatever pot you have. And that little ping pong ball in the corner, that came from Dollar Tree. We've got a couple of pieces of felt. First thing we're going to do is give our terracotta pot a good coat of white chalk paint. And then we are going to use some lavender. Now you can use whatever suits your decor, but I'm using lavender because I've got all the pastels going on for Easter this year, and I'm going to make her a little dress out of this pastel paint. So we're going to paint a length at the bottom, and then we're going to paint like a little box on top of her little skirt, and that'll be her pinafore. And then we are also going to paint her little straps onto her dress here, and I'm just using a little detail paintbrush. Sorry for the view of my head there. It's kind of hard to paint when you're not close enough to your project. Anyway, so I'm going to take that little ping pong ball and some paint markers and a little bit of paint, and we are going to paint on a little face. So I started with the black paint marker, and then I grabbed some pink chalk paint, a couple of different colors, a darker and a lighter, and we're going to make her little heart nose and her little blushy cheeks there. And then I'm going to come back in with my black paint marker, and I decided her eyes need to be just a little bit bigger for the size of her nose. Of course, before we can draw on any pupils, we've got to dry that, and then we're going to use our thinner paint marker to draw on her eyebrows and a little mouth. Then I'm going to come back in with that white chalk paint again and the end of my paintbrush to give her some little pupils and make her eyes come to life. Next thing I'm going to do is grab a little bit of wire. Now you can use whatever wire you've got on stock. This little pad of wire I bought a long time ago on clearance at is either Michael's or Hobby Lobby, and it has lasted me a good long time. We are going to make her ears. Now her ears are going to fasten into the top of that ping pong ball, so you want to create a little piece down at the end where you can poke that through. So I put a little bit of hot glue on there and pushed them together, and then grabbed my little jewelry pliers from Dollar Tree and twisted that end. Now that I've got both of those done, I'm going to give half of that little ear a piece of, or a little bit of hot glue, and glue them down to my felt. That way, number one, I get the piece size right, but also we're going to use this wire as the back of her ears so that her ears stand upright. And then I'm just going to trim all the way around and clip off that bottom part where you have your little stake piece that we're going to poke into her her head there. Now I'm grabbing a little bit of that pink felt, and I am going to cut out her ear, the inside part of her ear, and once I get that to the size and shape I like, then I'll go ahead and hot glue that in there. Now once that is done, then we are going to grab her little head there, and I'm going to use my weeding tool, my Cricut weeding tool, to poke the hole in there. If you don't have a Cricut weeding tool, you can use an awl or even a, I don't know, a pen, and poke that hole. And then we'll glue her ears in. We are going to add a little bit of hot glue onto the top of that terracotta pot, and then glue her arms and her head. Then we'll add a little bit of glue and glue her legs onto the inside of that pot. Now she's almost done, but we need one more finishing touch. And I wanted her little bow to match her dress, so I just grabbed that same color of paint and painted over some of that cotton twine until I got a bow the size I wanted, and glued that on. And check her out. Isn't she gorgeous? I love, 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 love her. I just think that she could not be any cuter. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know what colors are your Easter and spring colors this year. I just wanted to pop in here real quick and tell you how much I appreciate you. Whether this is your first visit here or I see you each and every week, every visit is important to me. Now, if this is your first visit here, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button and clicking the bell below so that you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Give today's video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and leave me comments below. Now, let's get back to crafting. That'll bring us to project number 2. This is the one I referenced in last week's video. Now you are going to take your little carnation flower pick there from Dollar Tree, and I chose 4 that I thought were the fluffiest ones, and I'm choosing to do 3 of these little rabbits. So I have 3 different colors of those carnations, and I'm going to match them up with my 3 different fabrics. To start with, I am going to use this Crayola air dry clay, and I'm going to take 2 balls, and we are going to make feet out of them. So we'll take a little bit of the 1 ball, and that'll be the top of the foot / shoe, and then we are going to form the second part into the actual shoe. So you can see I'm just kind of creating a little bit of maybe a cartoony type foot, but you can create whatever kind of bunny foot you want on there, or shoe, whatever suits your fancy. I guess it kind of looks like an olive oil kind of look to it, doesn't it? You know, Popeye's olive oil, or art, you must spinach. Anyway, we are going to get both shoes done and top of both shoes, and we're going to set those aside. Now this is air dry clay, and it takes about 48 to 72 hours to fully dry, but you know, it starts drying right away, so I want to get that done and set that aside. Now I am going to take that little base off of all 4 of the flowers, and then I decided to glue them all together. I would use a little square bead from Dollar Tree. I am going to take my handy dandy little clippers from Harbor Freight, and I am going to clip down 2 of the flowers, about half of that little stem piece at the end there. And then the other 2 flowers, once I get that little cap off, I am going to cut almost all the way down flush to the little petals on there. All right, now we're going to grab our fabric, and we are going to cut out a piece for the ears. Now I want you to remember we're going to make 2 ears, and they have 2 sides. So whatever size you cut your ears to match, make sure that you have 2 of them. And I cut them all out at the same time so that they were the same. Now you'll see I cut that one kind of pointy and skinny, but I end up cutting a different one because that one didn't work out very well, but it gave me kind of the base to get my wire. Now we're going to trim 2 pieces of wire for one for each ear, and that's what's going to be used to kind of give our ears their stiffness and hold them up. Kind of like in the last one where we held up our little felt ears. And you're going to want to make 2 about the same size, so I just measured one against the other. We're going to go back now to our flowers, and that bead I had to move along because I had forgotten to plug in my heat gun, so I had to give it a little bit of time to warm up, and so that's why we cut out the ears before finishing this. So we're going to put hot glue down there at the base and put that inside the hole on either side, and then we are going to put some glue on the flower and the little base we have left, and then we're going to glue that across from each other on that little wood bead, and that way you have the top of the bead free and the bottom of the bead free. So I took my fabric hot glue and I glued around the edges of that ear, and now we're going to push it right side out. So you're going to glue the right sides together and then push it out. And once I got that done, I realized the ear I cut the second time was too big. The first one was too small. Maybe this one is going to be just right. Goldilocks this time, right? So I figured out how much we actually needed, and I used that fabric hot glue to kind of glue it together. I put my wire piece in there, and then I'm going to trim down our bottom just a little bit, add a little bit more glue down at the base, and hold the base of our little ear together there, and then we're going to kind of fold over that bottom tiny bit as a little tab. That's what we're going to use to glue the bunny ear onto our head. Now this is kind of a macrame rope with a hole in the center, and I've got a couple of pieces of wire inside there to give it stiffness. You can use whatever you want. If you just wanted to do wire legs, you could do that too, but I liked the look of the macrame. And then I go ahead and stick that inside her shoes. Now I will glue the bottom part of that little square bead onto her legs so that will be stable. Originally I was going to use a wood bead, but I didn't have one big enough that looked right on top of that little puff ball we created with the carnations, and so I grabbed one of these ping pong balls from the Dollar Tree, and I am going to go ahead and get her little face painted on there. Kind of a similar face to the one that we just made on that terracotta pot. Now, I didn't get the eyebrow exactly the way I wanted it, so I scraped it off, which is the beauty of using this plastic ball. Scraped it off and then put it back on there. And we're going to add a little bit of dots on for her eyeballs and get her head glued right onto the top of her body there. Now once we've gotten her glued on, then we're going to go ahead and glue on her ears. You can see that little tab I made, and then we need a little place for her to stand. So I grabbed one of these wood rounds. It came in a package from Hobby Lobby. Now, if you get this on there 40% off, it's only $6 for that whole box of stuff. And here are all 3 of my bunnies. I love, 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 love them so much. I think they're so adorable. And what do you guys think? I love the bright colors, and it just feels so springy inside the house. Not that winter doldrum. And that brings us to project number 3. I love this too. I found these little eggs at Dollar Tree last year and picked them up, and I didn't know what to do with them. And this is my first, I know it's hard to believe, my first ever buffalo check that I've ever made. I've watched it done a lot, and so hopefully I don't screw it up. I'm going to put my first piece of painter's tape in the center, and then I'm going to grab little scrap pieces as markers for either side of that center piece, and then we'll get those on there. So we're going to do our stripes in one direction, and that's all we're going to need is those 3 stripes. And then we are going to paint this. Now our base paint, of course, is the white, and then we're going to come in with a lighter shade of this blue. So I'm going to mix that pool blue, and that's a Waverly color from Walmart. And I'm going to mix it with some white and get a real light shade of blue. And my paint was just a little bit thick, so I added a little bit of water in there to thin it down just a little bit. Get it all mixed up good, and then we are going to paint. Make sure your tape pieces are good and sturdy and down and stuck well, so that you don't get paint up underneath them. And once I've gotten these painted, then we're going to go ahead and let that dry, and then I'll take my tape off. And this is where the complicating part starts coming in. So instead of going in the middle, I thought about that. I just decided to start down at the bottom. So we're going to do in between and then layer our next one. And we're going to do that all the way up to the top. Now, if I had done the tape in the center, then our pieces would be equal distant or equal on the bottom and the top, but I didn't. I started at the bottom, and so we're actually going to have just a tiny little piece at the top, and I'm going to go ahead and tape that off now. And then you'll go back in with that same color of blue. Make sure that you take out your spacer tapes. That same color of blue on all of these. Now once you get that painted on and dried, we're going to leave those pieces of tape, and we're going to add the 3 pieces of tape back into that center white area. Now you're going to be able to see it. You can't see it too well on camera. Let me see if it pops up any better. You can see kind of a little where it's darker in some spaces and lighter in other spaces. So we're going to put our tape back on that white space, and on all 3 of those white spaces actually. And then we're going to come in with our darkest color. So if you don't want to start with a white, you can do 3 shades of whatever, let's say pink or blue or whatnot. You just need to make sure that your lightest shade is the bottom, that your next to lightest shade is the second layer, and then your last shade is going to be whatever the darkest shade is. So I'm just using straight out pool, and I'm kind of painting in those little boxed areas that don't have the tape. Now once I get this done and dried, we're going to come in and remove our tape. This is my favorite part of this project right here. Removing the tape and just looking at those nice clean edges. I think for my first shot ever, it turned out pretty good. Now I'm going to take a scrap piece of cardstock or paper, and we are going to draw ears and hands and feet. So I'm using that little egg as kind of my template guide, and we're going to cut 2 of each. So we'll have 2 ears, 2 hands, 2 feet. Once we get those all cut out of our, I just kind of want to rough it in so that I make sure that everything is cut to a good size. Now I've got this burlap roll that I bought, I'm sure, on clearance somewhere, and I am going to cut out 2 of each of my patterns, so I'll have a front and a back. Now if you'll notice, I cut them slightly bigger than the pattern, that way you know, for the edge and the seam and whatnot. Now the ears, I am going to leave the rough edge on the outside, so we're just going to take our fabric hot glue and glue around, and we're going to leave it just like that with the rough edge out. But for the hands and the feet, we're going to actually turn those inside out. And then I grabbed some pillow stuffing that I'm using as like a fiber fill. It's much cheaper to buy a cheap pillow and do it this way. And so I've got both ears filled. Now I'm going to fill the hands and feet, but once we glue those together, we're going to turn them right side out. So you're not going to have that rough edge seam on the hands and feet. And then you don't want to put in a whole bunch of the poly fiber on any of this. It will stand up pretty good on its own, but especially the hands and feet, you don't want to put too much in there, because we are going to stitch in little paws, and I'll show you that here in a second. I'm just going to use some embroidery floss and a needle to do that. I tried to make the little paws with the hot glue, but it didn't work out too well, so I found that stitching it like this is going to be the best way to get the look that I'm going for. Um, so we'll go ahead and just use one piece of that embroidery floss, and of course I double triple knotted it here at the end so that it wouldn't go through that burlap and it would stay put, so that we can sew in our little stitch. And it's just a back and forth stitch, and I probably went over it 2 or 3 times just to make sure that it stood out. And then I'm going to make sure and push some of that poly fiber into the little paw so that it gives it more definition. And then we're going to do 2 of these on each hand and on each foot. And when you get done at the end, then you're just going to, run it through and then tie it off and then trim off your thread. I hope that you can see that there, how that looks. And I'm just using the end of my paintbrush to put that in there. Now we are going to use our fabric hot glue, and we are going to seal up all the ends on all of our pieces, starting with the ears. And then we are going to glue those ears directly onto the back side of our little egg. And once we've gotten all those pieces glued on there, then I am going to grab out my little Cricut Joy, and I created a little file that just said hello spring, and I'm going to go ahead and print that out and set that up in the middle of our egg. If you don't have a Cricut, no worries. You can just print that on there or use sticker letters. Then I just grabbed some of this little, I don't even know, wispy kind of ribbon that I bought from Dollar Tree a while back, and a piece of twine, and tied it into a little bow there. Trimmed off my little edges, glued that on, and this is complete. Now, if your egg doesn't want to stand up nice and tall by itself, you can just add a tumbling tower block onto the back side, and that will complete your project. I think she is so fun and festive. And if you wanted to complete the back side of this, you could just put a piece of cardstock or cardboard on the back side, and that would cover up where you glued your little hands and feet on. But if this is just sitting up against a shelf, nobody's ever going to know the difference. And that brings us to project number 4. Ooh, I kind of love this one too. So you're going to grab 3 sizes of styrofoam balls, and the smallest one we are going to cut in half. And then I've gotten this piece of cardboard. It was the back side of one of those big desk calendars, and I thought it was the perfect stiffness of cardboard to keep. And I am going to make some little shoes out of that. Now, somehow I lost the footage of when I completed her shoes all the way. So I'll tell you now, I did use that rickrack around the edge, and I used some felt down on the bottom of her shoes, because you'll see how I use some of that burlap to cover the top part of her shoes, and those burlap pieces were on the bottom. So we are going to glue these little styrofoam balls down once my glue gun heats back up again, and make her feet. Now, keep in mind, if you are using hot glue to do any of this project, you want to definitely turn it down to the low setting and not use the high, because the high will melt that styrofoam. So we are taking the biggest ball, and we are going to glue that twine all the way around that ball till the very end. And this is a little bit of tedious work, but I think it turns out so stinking cute. Once you get to the end there, just trim it off and make sure your last piece there is secure. And look at that. Now we are going to do the same thing on the medium-sized ball. So the medium-sized ball will be the head, and the large-sized ball will be the body. Now we're going to go ahead and work on her feet, and we're going to glue those styrofoam balls down to our cardboard pieces. We're going to take our burlap, and we are going to glue that on and secure that around the styrofoam and cardboard to make little kind of like sandal shoe kind of looking things. The paper side is going to be what we secure to her body when we glue it all together. So once you've gotten the top and the bottom part, then you're just going to make some little trims around, like you do when you're, doing fabric around a circle, and add a little bit of hot glue and secure those down. Now all these frayed pieces, I didn't want them to fray apart, and I also wanted her to have a steady something to stand on, and that's why we added felt onto the bottom. And I just found a piece of felt that coordinated or matched really well with that burlap. Once I got the felt glued on, that's when I took that rickrack and glued it all the way around, to kind of give it the sole of the shoe kind of look. Then we are going to grab some paddle wire and we are going to fashion some ears out of this. Now these ears we are going to put twine on, and so this will be a completely twine bunny. Also going to fashion these ears like we did on the ones with the fabric, so that part of that base will be what we secure and push down into the styrofoam to hold our ears together. Now I started this wrapping of the ears with a knotted piece, and then just took a little bit of hot glue and some patience, and trying really hard not to squish that twine too tightly, because otherwise it would make her ears really skinny, and we didn't want that look. So I am just taking my time and gluing that twine and wrapping it all the way up. And then to finish it off, we are just going to glue it all the way to the top, and there is our ear. Now that we have both ears done, we are going to glue her body onto her feet. And I noticed once I glued the head on that she was wanting to topple a little bit. So I just grabbed a couple of pieces of scrap wood and created a little base for her to sit on, and then just glued her on that, and that gave her the stability she needed to not topple. Then we're going to poke our ears into the top of her head, and it is time to fashion her some arms. So I took the length of wire I needed to get it all the way around her body, and then I doubled it and then twisted it over so that her hands and arms will be sturdy and secure. Now, if you'll notice, I've rolled that over on the ends to create the hand, and I'm going to cover that up, I think with 3 lengths of this twine, so it kind of gave her hands a little bulkier look to them. Once we've gotten that done, then we're going to wrap that twine all the way around the wire, all the way to the other hand, and we'll do the same. That way her hands are delineated from her arms, and we'll glue that last little bit on there, and then we're going to wrap her arms around her neck, and secure them there with a little bit of hot glue. Once that is done, then it is time to work on her face. So I grabbed a little bit of brown felt. I am going to cut a circle out of it. That'll be her nose. And I'm going to make her some whiskers out of the twine. So we're just going to take a scrap piece of twine and cut it into 3 pieces of all of the same length. Now I tried to find pieces that were kind of flat and not rounded over, so that her little nose will hold those together. We'll glue those pieces of twine onto her nose and then stick it right onto her body. Then for her eyeballs, I decided she needed googly eyes. I don't know about you guys, but I have a nice collection of googly eyes, and I hardly ever use them. But for this project, I felt like she needed the googly eyes and a little bit of carrot. That's one of those twine carrots from Dollar Tree. And I added a little bow to her head, and I think she is just so stinking cute. I love my whole little display of bunnies this year. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. There's her little shoes. Oops, I guess I missed blowing off a little bit of that hot glue. But that'll bring us to our final project, project number 5, another adorable bunny. This project, we also grabbed our little box of things from Hobby Lobby. We're going to use some fabric, a little bit of wire from the Dollar Tree, one of those little round pieces, 2 little beads, and a skewer stick from the Dollar Tree. Grabbing my handy dandy pink drill, I am going to drill a hole big enough for that skewer stick on the top, and then we are going to fashion wire ears. Now these wire ears are just going to stay wire ears, and we'll make 2 of them the same size. This is my last bit of black wire that I was able to find at the Dollar Tree. I have seen the paddle wire recently, but not this particular kind of wire. So sad that I can't find it anymore. But we are going to drill a hole big enough in the top of her head on either side to put both of those little pieces of wire in there to secure her ear down. Now you can secure this down with a little bit of hot glue if you want. Mine just kind of stayed there. I decided to draw her face on with a pencil before I came in with my paint markers. And really I did this so that I would get the proportion right on her nose without having to change her ears. Her ears, her eyeballs, because I was going to give her the little slit eyes. Now I did erase that nose before I started painting it because the paint was such a light color that I knew that pencil mark would come through. Now I'm going to take a little bit more of that wire, and this is what we are going to make her arms and hands out of. So her hands, I slipped that bead into the bottom of that wire and then wrapped the end up into the top and then pulled it taut, and that is how that little bead stays put. So you can see I'm just pushing it down into the top of the bead and then pulling it tight, and that holds it nice and secure. Then we are going to just wrap this around her neck until we get our arms where we want them. I grabbed a scrap piece of paper, and this is going to be my pattern to cut out the little dress that I'm going to make from this fabric. Now, one of the ways that you can coordinate all your decor, which is something you can't really do if you buy it from here, there, and yonder, is by using similar fabrics and colors in your decor. And so this particular fabric I've used in the other bunny at the beginning. So this little bunny is going to match that little bunny. Anyway, I am ironing a little seam there on the whole thing all the way around, making sure that it lays flat. I'm going to use my liquid stitch, and I am using my Cricut Easy Press Mini, my Cricut Mini press. Is that what it's called? Mini press. To secure that liquid stitch down and get a nice clean seam for her dress. I'm also going to do that along the bottom. Once I've got that done and pressed and held together, I'm going to grab a little bit of parchment paper and my liquid stiffener, and I'm going to spray that on there to make her dress stiff. That way it's the way I want it to when I glue it to her little skewer stick body. So here we're just going to kind of give it a dry fit and figure out exactly where we want the glue to go. And for this part, I'm going to use the fabric hot glue. That way I can kind of control it, and it goes exactly where I need it to go. We'll glue the little cone together, then we're going to put it on her, then we're going to add a little bit of hot glue up at the top and secure it together with a little pinch. And that's all there is to putting her together. Now to make her stand up, I grabbed a little wooden disc piece there and drilled a hole into it big enough for the skewer stick to go in, and voila, she is all done. I love her so much. I ended up repainting her nose a slightly darker color pink just so that it showed up better, and I made it into a heart shape instead of the little triangle, but I think she turned out adorable. And here's another look at all of today's projects. Let me know in the comments below which one or ones was your favorite, or which one you would like to try to recreate. If you do recreate any projects, I would love if you'd send me pictures to happytuesdaydiy@gmail.com. You guys give me so much inspiration, and I love to see the twists and turns that you take in taking my project and making it your own. Now I've got a special treat for you on Saturday. I am releasing a second video this week, so look out for that. I am a guest host in a collaboration, a recreation inspiration. So I am looking forward to seeing y'all again real soon. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really did enjoy our time together. Now, since you stuck around with me till the very end, here's your hint on one of next week's projects. You're going to need some rope, nautical or otherwise, and some felt. But until then, make it a great day and happy Tuesday!